The rain came down like a parole officer on a Friday night, unforgiving and determined to ruin any fun. I was hunched over a lukewarm cup of precinct coffee in interview room B, watching the gray sludge of downtown through the blinds. My partner of 6 years, Frank Moretti, had just taken a bullet in the thigh 3 days ago during a simple check-in that turned into a Tijuana standoff. He was going to be fine, limping for a year and retiring to Boca. But I was left with a stack of open files and a case involving a money launderer named Viktor Kozlov who liked to move cash through high-end art galleries. That's when Captain Rossi's size 14 wingtip squeaked on the linoleum, followed by the click of heels that sounded too sharp, too expensive for the DMV carpet we were standing on. "McCall," Rossi grunted, his jowls shaking like a bloodhound's. "Meet your new partner. Temporary, while Frank is out. Detective Vance. She's from the 3rd. I turned around, my mouth half open to complain about babysitting a new transfer, and my entire vascular system performed a violent, full-stop emergency brake. It was her. The woman from the Blind Bishop. 3 months ago. I'd been drinking whiskey trying to wash the taste of a dead kid's autopsy out of my throat. She'd been in a black dress that looked like liquid shadow, nursing a dirty martini with 2 olives. She had a laugh that could strip varnish and eyes the color of wet slate. We didn't exchange names. We didn't exchange life stories. We exchanged oxygen, sweat, and the kind of physical collision that makes you forget your own goddamn badge number. I left her hotel room at 4:47 a.m., shoes in hand, thinking I'd never see that specific shade of lipstick again. And now she was standing next to Rossi, holding out a badge with the name Deed Mara Vance, wearing a tailored gray blazer that hid a shoulder holster and a smirk that said, "Don't you dare say a fucking word." "Mara Vance," she said, her voice smooth as good bourbon but with a distinct, professional frost. "I've heard a lot about you, Detective McCall." I shook her hand. Her grip was firm, her fingers cool, but I felt the electric ghost of those same fingers digging into the small of my back 3 months prior. "Welcome to Homicide," I managed, my voice sounding like gravel in a cement mixer. Rossi squinted at us. "You two know each other?" "Nope," we said in perfect, guilty unison. "Too fast. Way too fast." Rossi's eyebrow twitched, the only part of his face that ever showed true emotion, but he was too swamped with budget meetings to dig. "Good. You're on Kozlov. We got a tip he's meeting his bagman tonight at the docks. Keep it quiet. Eyes only. No hero shit." The first week was a masterclass in psychological warfare. We sat 2 feet apart in the bullpen, surrounded by the hum of copiers and the stale smell of toner. I'd watch her out of the corner of my eye. The way she bit the end of her pen when reading a wiretap transcript. I knew what that mouth tasted like. I knew the sound she made when she was really focusing on something. It was a low hum in the back of her throat. She'd made that sound against my neck at 2 a.m. Then there was the car. The unmarked sedan, a Crown Vic that smelled like old fast food and the ghost of Frank cigarillos. We were trapped in that bubble of cheap vinyl and government-issue air freshener for 6 hours at a stretch. The sexual tension wasn't just a spark, it was a goddamn live wire, frayed and spitting blue arcs in the confined space. "Move your seat back, you're crowding the wheel," she'd say, and I'd remember the way her legs had locked around my waist. "Stop drumming your fingers on the dashboard," I'd snap back, and I'd picture those fingers tracing the scar on my collarbone. We were professionals. We did the work. We tracked Kozlov to a warehouse on Pier 14. We took notes. We spoke in clipped, cop vernacular about vehicular egress and tactical positioning. But the air between us was thick as honey and twice as sticky. It snapped last night. It was 1 a.m. The rain was a thick, oily drizzle that turned the sodium lights of the docks into blurry yellow orbs. Kozlov was inside the warehouse, but the bagman was a no-show. We were parked across the street in the deep shadow of a rusting shipping container, the Crown Vic's engine off to save gas and avoid the tailpipe steam. The windows were fogged up from our breathing and the damp cold. We hadn't spoken in 45 minutes. I was watching the warehouse door through binoculars. She was scrolling through her phone, the blue glow illuminating the sharp angle of her jaw. Then she sighed. It wasn't a sigh of boredom. It was a sigh of frustration, the kind of exhale you make when you've been holding your stomach in all day and you just let go. "McCall," she whispered. "Yeah. Look at me." I lowered the binoculars. In the dim light, her eyes were black pools. The professionalism, the frost, the Detective Vance persona, it all just dissolved. "This is insane," she said. "Sitting here pretending I haven't seen you naked." And just like that, the dam broke. It wasn't sweet. It wasn't romantic. It was a storm surge. The center console of the Crown Vic might as well have been Mount Everest. There was a clumsy scramble of holsters digging into ribs, the sharp bite of a seatbelt buckle against my thigh, and the frantic, almost angry need to get closer. My hand was in her hair, pulling that tight ponytail loose. Her mouth was on mine, and it tasted like mint gum and gunpowder residue. The windows of the car went instantly opaque with a thick fog of breath. She was halfway over the gear shift, her knee knocking the radio handset off the hook, sending a squawk of static into the cab. "Shoo!" I hissed, but I was laughing, and she was biting my lip. "Unhook the mic," she breathed against my ear, her fingers working the button of my jeans. "Now." It was cramped, uncomfortable, and possibly the hottest 5 minutes of my entire life. The entire Crown Vic rocked gently on its shocks. At one point, my elbow hit the horn, a short, bleeding beat that echoed off the shipping containers like a gunshot. We froze, tangled together like two felons mid-heist, listening for footsteps that never came. Afterward, there was a heavy, humid silence. She pulled away, smoothing down her blazer, her cheeks flushed in the darkness. I zipped up, my heart hammering so loud I was sure Kozlov could hear it from across the street. The radio crackled to life. "All units in Sector 7, report status." She picked up the handset, her voice perfectly steady. "Dispatch, Unit 413. All quiet. No movement." I stared at her. She was a goddamn natural. We didn't talk on the drive back to the precinct. This morning, I walked into the bullpen feeling like I had sex in a squad CR written on my forehead in neon ink. My collar was up to hide a mark on my neck that was definitely not shaving rash. Mara was already at her desk, looking like she just stepped out of a tactical gear catalog. Cool. Composed. Deadly. She didn't look at me. But under the edge of her keyboard, there was a single mint leaf, the same kind she'd been chewing before she kissed me. A calling card. A warning. A promise. And then Rossi's door opened. "McCall. Vance. My office. Now." We walked in. Rossi wasn't behind his desk. He was standing by the window, staring at the rain. His back was to us, and that was never a good sign. "Close the door." I did. He turned around slowly. His face was unreadable, but his eyes were flicking between the two of us like a pinball machine. "I got a call this morning from the Harbor Patrol. One of their guys, Jimmy the Whale, was doing a sweep of Pier 14 at 1:30 a.m. He says he saw a ghost car shaking like a martini mixer near the blue containers. He thought someone was getting murdered in there, so he started to approach." Rossi paused. Then he said the car let out a happy little beep, and he decided to mind his own business. Jimmy the Whale is a good cop, but he's also a goddamn gossip. The silence in the office was a physical weight. I felt Mara tense up next to me, a coiled spring. Rossi stepped forward, close enough that I could smell the coffee and regret on his breath. He pointed a thick finger at me, then at Mara, then at the floor. I don't know what's going on with you two. I don't want to know. But I have been a cop for 34 years. I know the look of two people who want to either kill each other or screw each other silly. And frankly, with the paperwork you'd cause, I can't tell the difference. He leaned in, his voice dropping to a gravelly whisper. You are on the Kozlov case. This guy has Russian mob ties and a lawyer who sues the department for sneezing too loud. If I find out that this case goes sideways because you two were distracted, if I find so much as a stray eyelash in the back of that Crown Vic, I will bury you both so deep in the file room you'll be breathing dust for the next decade. You'll be reassigned to sorting the cold case rape kits from 1982. Understood? Crystal, Mara said, her voice ice cold. Clear, I echoed. Rossi stared at us for a long, painful moment. Then he flicked his hand. Get out. And McCall. Yeah, Cap. Fix your collar. You look like you lost a fight with a Dyson.